So this is Alex Wawro from Gamasutra, and I'm sitting here today playing Hero Generations with the creator, Scott Brodie. Scott, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we are looking at a prototype, I guess, an in-development build of your game, Hero Generations, that you submitted to Indicate back in 2011.
Yep, yeah. It's kind of an old game for me, and I've been working on a few other games like High Grounds, but I'm excited to be bringing it back and trying to answer, the requests that a lot of the people who played it back then have been bugging me about for some time. So yeah,
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm gonna just sort of hover here like a ghost and play through the game while we talk about it. Uh,
sounds
so
good.
this is a Flash build, obviously. Did you submit this game anywhere else before you gave it to Indicate, or have you run it anywhere since?
Yeah, around the same time that I submitted it to Indicate, I put it up on the web as just a beta, basically, to try to gather feedback and see how the design was working. And I put it up on Facebook and I think, one other small place. And it was really good. I learned a lot about the game and, how I needed to adjust it. And since then, when I started working on High Grounds, I actually took it down just because I just didn't have the capability to manage both games. And so that's why I'm doing the Kickstarter now to try to bring it back and do it the right way.
So let's talk a little bit about it. I'm gonna start playing it right now. I don't know,
Uh,
can you see it all, or am I just narrating this to you?
I can't see it, but I can probably figure it out if you could do a screen share or I can probably just figure out what you're playing.
Yeah, I we can just kind of wing it. I'll just sort of narrate you in a text by text voice narration. I'm
Okay.
looking at like a tile-based screen. It's a Flash game, obviously. I've got it zoomed in, so it's kind of chunky, but it's cute, it's lively, it's vibrant, and I'm moving around a map. It seems like every time I move, I expend a year of my life, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the core concept of the game is that you've got a limited lifespan, and every move that you make on the grid equals 1 year of your life. So having those high stakes kind of makes each choice of where you move be important.
Yeah, there's a giant dragon here. There's no way I can take this dragon, right? I mean, he has 70
Yeah,
strength. Go
yeah,
ahead.
probably not yet. You'll need to build up your strength or find a weapon in the world. Yeah, there's lots of ways to do that, but he's kind of the big challenge out there that you have to avoid when you're younger.
Yeah, so I actually played a few hours of this over the weekend, and I appreciate you sending us this prototype build.
Yeah,
Um,
no problem.
and I have to say, like, I can never take on a dragon with my first hero, even with the third or fourth. The raw disparity in strength is too high. Is that like, do you have a target for how you're tuning the game to sort of hit a certain generation path before you can like sort of clear the big boss on a given map?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does grow, and there are definitely challenges that are out there, like the dragon, or on another growth path. There's the monument out there that costs like 7,000 or 8,000 gold to build, and so you definitely need to build up to those things. And that's kind of the other core aspect of the game is, do I go all out right now and try to become really famous, or do I try to build up and build a hero down the road that can take on those things. So a lot of the things you could do in the game, or one of the main ways that you can build up strength to take on the dragon, for example, is to start building the barracks building around some of your towns, and those barracks actually give you strength when you go over them, and they also influence the towns next to them by making the potential mates that you can woo in that town have strength bonus traits. So you can get like a warrior trait is one of the things that might come of that.
Oh, that's fantastic. I'm jumping ahead of where I am now. I just hit adulthood, but I know that
Okay.
once I eventually settle down, I'll get to pick. And here, actually, this is a good point. I'm pulling a card as I level up, and that's giving me a little bonus.
Yes.
So I'm curious to know how you came up with the system of building those like card-based bonuses. I noticed they also come into play when you're when you're procreating, and
Yes.
I saw the new generation. You end up picking from a giant parenting board of like, and you pick like 8 cards or something, and that defines your offspring's makeup.
Yeah. So what I definitely wanted to have that genetic system underlying the mating game. I wanted to make sure that traits and stats from each of your parents came through. And what I found is when I just did a flat random generation and didn't give the player any control, people got really frustrated because they felt, oh, the game just screwed me over and gave me this character that's going to be hard to play. So just by giving people that little bit of agency of making the choices themselves, of which cards to select from their parents, kind of alleviated that. In the new version, I definitely want to give you even more agency, like hopefully, based upon the choice, the selections you make in that game, you'll get a little bit more information about where some of the other traits might be. So it won't be as random. There'll be a little bit more, of an actual, mini game kind of there to influence that.
I almost beat the dragon. That's fantastic. Whoa, I've never seen that before. So the dragon just walloped me and took a big chunk of health, but he took a bunch of gold too. Like,
Yeah, he must have a trait. So all the monsters and characters are procedurally generated with traits just like you can get. So he must have the thief trait, which lets him steal money from you when he defeats you in combat.
yeah, I can see it right here. Tell me a bit about, you made this game in Flash, right?
Yes.
So tell me about your development process, like how you came up with the idea in general.
With the idea in general, you say?
Yeah, the idea,
Yeah.
and also like how you came to develop a procedurally generated tile-based, what appears to be generational RPG.
Yeah. Well, it was a long process for sure. The idea definitely stemmed from the core idea of watching a character grow up rapidly, and I just really like that idea. A lot of other games have touched on that subject, but what they do is they do it over the course of like an epic 20-hour story, where you don't get to see the rapid iteration and see, hey, if I did this other type of character, how would that play out? And so I tried to just shorten the overall, time of play so that you would see more and more of these iterations and get to see some of that other genetic stuff. So that was kind of the toy that I wanted to play with. And then the sort of roguelike strategy thing just naturally came to be the right fit for the game, because I wanted to show all the different paths and choices you could take. So that seemed to be the right perspective for it. And there's definitely inspiration, not to go on and on, but inspiration from my own life there, kind of pulling from, okay, what are some of the big choices that I've had in my life, and how can I turn that into a mechanic in the game? So I think that's kind of where the genesis of it started. And the reason I chose Flash is simply that's all I really was good at from a programming standpoint. But since then I've grown as a programmer as well, so I've started to adopt other languages too.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I have to confess, I've only played a little bit of this game, but I already felt strange twinges of, I guess, of emotion when playing it, because you're making these choices, and yeah, maybe you're just better at it than I am, but I can never accomplish anything meaningful with my first generation. In fact, it usually takes 3 or 4 before I'm able to trounce across the map and do anything useful, like worthwhile. And having to make those kind of choices really is a new experience for me in terms of games. And I wonder, are you aware at all of Double Fine's currently in development game, Massive Chalice?
Yeah, I am aware of it. Yeah, actually, I know some of the folks over there quite well. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about how they're doing it and how some of the concepts are similar to what is in here, Generations.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting way for people to sort of take the sort of like the process of human history and turn it into a game mechanic. So I'm curious to know if you ran into any like interesting or really troublesome developmental difficulties while you're putting this game together, from a code perspective.
From a code perspective, yeah, I guess, I mean, I think there's this idea of, okay, if we're making a whole game about, this massive topic of life and all the things that can happen, there's like an infinite number of things that you could throw into this game from a content perspective. So I think that the hardest challenge as a designer was to pare down and simplify the game so that it was understandable. Because there could be there's tons of discrete elements in the game that would just make it really hard to learn how to play it. So a lot of the choices I've made have just been about simplifying and making the game understandable for new players, and then slowly growing that set of things you can do in the game such that you still have that depth and that variety over time. Right. So I think that's kind of where I focused a lot of my time.
Yeah, so how's it been going, the Kickstarter campaign?
Oh, I've been kind of blown away, honestly. we set a goal of 32,000, and just before this call, I saw that we passed 50% funded. I'm very happy. We're about 5 or 6 days into the campaign now, so we've got a lot of time left to hit our goal, and I'm excited to be able to possibly add some of the other things I wanted to into the game, like some of the other worlds and tile sets that will make the game more varied.
Right, and this certainly, obviously, is not your first game project. I know you're also working. You've started your own independent studio since leaving Microsoft, right?
Yeah. After leaving Microsoft, I started Heart Shaped Games, and I did start with Hero Generations, but then I quickly moved on to a game called High Grounds, which is kind of a collectible card game without the cards. And I partnered with a lot of my friends over at another independent studio called Spry Fox for that. And that game is still going strong. We have over 200 some characters in the game, or cards if you want to call them that. And we've built the community. So yeah, I've learned a ton from that game, and I'm excited to kind of apply a lot of those learnings to Hero Generations.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked. Do you have any like concrete examples? I mean, it's been 3 years since you built this prototype, I assume. It's been a while.
Right.
And like, what have you learned, and how do you hope that the additional funding from Kickstarter will allow you to sort of change and adapt it?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of it is in, obviously there's just lots of content and things that I want to build, and it gave me a lot of time to flesh out what the overall structure should be, so that we can hit that kind of epic, one more turn, or I guess one more year in this game, like a civilization can accomplish. But there's just a lot of little things about development that I wasn't experienced enough with myself, and I think it's just like creating a great user interface and streamlining it. I think that the UI for in the prototype, I've made a few modifications, like to show, like, I put everything on the sidebar, but even in the Indiecade version of the game, there was like stuff all over the screen, and it was kind of a mess. So I'm excited to apply what I've learned about making a UI, for example, from High Grounds to this, and just like some visual tricks and things that having a proper artist, my friend Dominic Sedano's partnering with me on this game, and he's going to bring a lot to bring out a lot of the emotion and just make things clear for players.
That's fantastic. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead. I just got distracted. I have to ask you. So I've played a little while, and
Sure.
there's a very simple mechanic where every time you start a new generation, your new hero leaves home, and you talk to your father and mother, and they share with you advice and some gossip that is essentially a thinly veiled way to tell the player how the world has changed in the ensuing
Right.
generation. But when one of your parents has passed away, which seems to be randomly generated, there's like a little letter next to the grave instead, which is
Yeah.
really off-putting when it's like mom's gossip. I haven't heard anything new lately, which is what I'm saying now.
Right.
That's sealed in a tiny letter that's sitting next to the gravestone.
Yeah, I think that is definitely an area that we'll focus on improving in the new one. I mean, it is like you said, like functionally, the purpose of that system is just to reveal kind of what has changed over the 16 years while you've been raised. But yeah, I definitely want to add more variety there, and also just a little bit more flavor, perhaps, to bring out a little bit of who your mom or dad was, that has passed away. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. Like it's kind of simplified in the current prototype.
I mean, it's totally functional. It's just like every once in a while when those variables line up just right, you get kind of an awkward scenario. I'm gonna go ahead and back out here. I noticed there's a quest system, and you can move between maps. I didn't have time to get to that during our chat because it normally takes me 4 to 5 life gen, like, to be able to clear a map. But the quests you complete, and those give you fame, right? And fame, does fame have any value beyond just helping you, net a more desirable mate? Is that a yes, no? Have I lost you? I may have lost you. Damn. Scott Brodie, you've been a fantastic interview. I'm sorry that our Skype conversation seems to have dropped out. But thanks so much for your time, and talk to you shortly.